So I heard this story yesterday, and I believe it was Mark Stein talking about the Dirk draft pick, and he was talking to the Mavericks organization and asked him how Dirk did, and they basically said that Dirk had a horrible workout, and that this other kid, I forget who it was, really excelled, and it was disappointing because they liked Dirk and all of this. Obviously, they end up loving Dirk. That was a complete lie. And Dallas, the Mavericks organization, said to Mark, "Don't listen to us at all before draft because it's all lies." Can you talk a little bit about the whole disinformation campaign that goes on pre-draft from team to team in the media? How front offices use media to sort of like take you off the scent, and who's the best at it in the league right now?
Yeah, all really good questions, Trista. Look at it this way. If you work for a team, why would you want anybody to know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want anybody to know what you're doing because there goes your competitive advantage. And in this draft that's coming tomorrow night, I think the Orlando Magic have done a good job injecting some uncertainty into the process. I mean, most people think they're going to take Jabari Smith, the forward out of Auburn. I think that's who they'll take. I wouldn't be shocked if they take Chet Holmgren. Personally, now we've seen on the betting markets, and I know obviously given your multiple gigs with Odyssey, you follow the betting markets closely. Paolo Banchero has skyrocketed. He was a distant third on the betting markets. Now he's moved up just behind Chet Holmgren into that number 3 slot, close to number 2. So, I mean, they're doing a good job of that. Now, we'll see ultimately all that matters to the franchise is whether they draft the right guy and how he develops. But yeah, if you're Orlando, for example, you want people thinking you could take any of those 3 guys or maybe even Jaden Ivey, because if a team falls in love with a player, you don't want them to say, okay, well, we know Orlando's going to take Jabari Smith, for example. Now let's just talk to Oklahoma City at 2 and try to trade for 2 because we know who 1 is. You want all your options to be open. So that's why it happens. And yeah, the disinformation, it's easy on the team side to spot a lot of times because when you see stuff about your own team, you say, well, that's not true. It's obviously when you're living it, when you're doing it. And so what I would say, just from a general perspective for your fans, is consider the sources, right? I mean, some of the NBA's top newsbreakers, you and I know a lot of them, but Badrian Wojnarowski, Shams Charania, some of these guys say it's probably pretty legitimate. If it's some guy who's an egg with 6 followers on Twitter, you probably don't want to listen to that person if it is a person and not a bot. So that's the challenge. Teams will use it to throw out smoke screens. Agents will use it to try to, as you talked about, players rising or falling, especially try to spike their guys' value right before draft time and prevent a free fall on the other side of it. So as far as teams, honestly, I think just about every team does it. And then, one of the new trends that's interesting, I guess this is more related to free agency, but I was thinking of today is one of the things we're seeing now, Trista, is teams using the media to set the expectations for free agency, right? So it's, for example, a recent example in the last 24 hours, PJ Tucker opts out in Miami with the Heat. We see that the Philadelphia 76ers will offer PJ Tucker a 3-year, $30 million deal, and that the Miami Heat better be prepared to, pay that amount. So that's
That's coming from the agent side, yes? That's got to be coming from the agent side, right?
I think it's both. Honestly, I think a lot of it probably is the agent side. He's doing what's best for his player. That's his job. But a lot of it's the team side too, where if you're PJ Tucker, so I didn't know that team was interested in at that level. Let me start. I was thinking about maybe re-signing in Miami. I'm comfortable here. We just went to the Eastern Conference Finals, almost played in the NBA Finals. It's South Beach, no state income tax, all those kind of things. But Philly's interested. Well, they have James Harden and Joel Embiid. And, so that's kind of the way the game is played now, as Draymond calls it, the new media. And I don't think that's a trend that's going to change, not only with players, doing media like Draymond and CJ McCollum, but with teams and agents and even players leaking stuff to try to manipulate situations the way they want it to go.
What percentage of what we've seen rumor-wise, specifically this year, considering it's a very wide open draft, would you consider to be false?
Oh, well, more than half. I think a lot more than half.
That's a lot.
But because honestly, one of the things that's funny with NBA teams is they'll spend just about all their time talking about what every single other team's going to do, and then when you ask somebody, "What are you guys going to do?" It's I'm not sure, because there's no reason to tell another team what you're going to do, So I think that perpetuates it. You know, when we were kids, like the game telephone, where you tell the person next to you and then they tell the next person. And by the time it got to the end of the line, the message was kind of similar, but like pretty different. That's kind of like the NBA, where, you know, you hear this team is interested in this guy or may do this. And then it gets, you know, parroted and maybe changed and tweaked a little bit. And by the time sometimes it hits the media or it gets back to you, say, wait a minute, that's not what it's kind of like what I heard, but different. So there is a lot of that in NBA front offices. And that's why I think in some ways, honestly, it's a little bit of a waste of time to do all that. If you're an NBA executive or with a team, just, you know, focus on what you're doing, the draft, the film, the trades. Don't worry about it, you know, and just rely on your direct conversations with other teams rather than what you read on Twitter or some of these NBA gossip sites.